appreciate it. Yeah.
Residents that they were given time to evacuate by
Yeah.
the military.
It's Monday morning, and those looking to tank up on the East Coast may have to wait in line if there's any gas at all at their local gas station. Here's our Julie Walker.
That pipeline hit by a cyber attack may be up and running again, but you might still be searching for gas at stations in the southeast and east coast. Colonial Pipeline said Saturday it had resumed normal operations, delivering millions of gallons per hour. But drivers are still taking to social media to complain about empty
his experience
pumps
with the
and gas
AstraZeneca
buddies.
vaccine.
Track shortages has loads of outages reported by motorists in numerous states.
No injuries reported, but that wildfire that's spreading through a Los Angeles Canyon community is intensifying. About 1,000 residents told to run for it. Others warned they too may have to evacuate.
Thank you, hon. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Perfect. That's much better. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Right.
it's blasting me out. Okay.
Vaccinated Americans can dump the mask in most cases.
Oh, and
She said the decision's
I'm
based on science, not
gonna
political
call you a
pressure.
little bit later.
One-third
I'd
of
like to
Americans
talk
are
with
now
you
fully vaccinated
about
against COVID.
the Saturday
This
morning
is AP
forum.
News.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anthony Fauci says the
Yeah, okay.
disparities in this country.
You know, to get the format to really work.
And failing of
You
our
know,
own society.
to get it to
The
really
unacceptable disparities in health
work.
experienced by minority groups,
I am not looking for another job.
especially African
Just
Americans,
so that you know.
Hispanics, and Native Americans.
Dr. Fauci
That-
spoke during the
but I
graduation
just, you know, you
ceremony at
want
Emory University,
this
saying
to
humanity
work.
hasn't faced
And
a
what
public
I,
health
you know,
crisis of this
so I'd love to
magnitude
talk with you about
since the
that.
1918
Get some of your
implementation
some of your
of
thoughts
that.
and share
Speaking
with you
about
some
the
things that I've been
coronavirus
hearing from
outbreak.
people because
About
you know
1,600 jobs
I
are being
ask
cut at
you know
a
I do
cheap
what I call
Cherokee
my soul
factory in
polls,
Illinois. Automakers are
so I
continuing
can
to
find
Mhm.
you know so I can find out just kind of okay what do you like. You know, people have to understand that even on this radio show, as my mother said, she said, who the people like will determine who. Okay, I'm getting some background noise from you, Todd. Pastor Yuri. Okay.
For me,
Yeah, it just sounding a little. Is that what are you hearing, Devin?
There's something going on. It sounds like it's
Is it on our end?
It's Reverend Yuri. Is there something like it's? I don't know how to describe it. It sounds like there's something else in the room. Do you have like a dog or a cat or something?
nope. It's just me.
Interesting. Did you move or something by any chance? Like ruffle your jacket or something?
It was just sounding like you were outside or something.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm better now though, so.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure that you. Okay. Just want to we want to get the sound clean before as we get going. So, excuse me, Todd. I have a friend who had honey, shows like this, you typically have a staff of people helping you. So I am like doing a lot of, this is not a complaint. Before you even hire people to do something, you need to know how to do it yourself. But it's just a lot of work. So you're trying to, but it sounds like you're outside. That's what it is. It sounds like you're outside. But in the meantime, let me say hello to Carol from the left coast. Brian A. King, how you doing? From Memphis, Tennessee. I love it, love it, love it. We used to stay with the Kyles on South Parkway. That's right. And all of our friends from Stax Records, Larry Shaw, of course, when Chairman Bell was down there, the Bridges. We have a family of friends down there. Love you down in Memphis. Brian Martin, and let me see, Daryl and Deborah, and everybody.
60
like
seconds.
Like and share. Samantha Banks, everybody, please like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share. We need you to like and share so we can continue to build the broadcast, which has been growing, and that is thanks to you. Yep. It sounds like you're outside. That's what it is, Reverend Yuri. I don't know what it is. Could just be the connection. But we're going to work it out. Okay. But I'm glad to be with you all today. And we're almost at Memorial Day. Yay. Woohoo. So we're going to talk about a lot today. Boo.
10 seconds.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Hey, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. Hope you're feeling victorious today. May 17th, Monday, 2021. What a beautiful day it is here in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're expecting a high in Chicago of 63 degrees. Cloudy, though, but still beautiful. You know, the sun's on the other side of those clouds. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 79 degrees. Wow, positively almost summer-like, sunny. Wow, it's going to be beautiful. We're in the throes of spring, everybody, but you know, we're in the Midwest. Don't throw away those sweaters yet. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Got a lot to talk about today. Did you know that the NBA is establishing an African League? Wow, what will that mean? President Obama is involved. I don't know if he's going to be an owner or something, but he is involved in the creation of the African League of the NBA. But there's some controversy because they're going to launch it from Rwanda, which there are a lot of human rights concerns, but you can see that all over the continent. We actually have them in the United States as well. But people are saying the African League is a great idea. But I have a lot of questions about it because I wonder what ownership is going to look like. Will you have African owners? Will you have Black American owners? I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that we're going to be peeling back. Want to peel back that onion and want to know what you're thinking about it. What should it look like? What should it be like? What should it feel like? And we're going to be talking, of course, about vaccine passports. Did you know that every vaccine that is rendered in the United States, at least, you're registered? Your name is put in a registry when you take the vaccine. So there is a record of every vaccine that has been received, every vaccine that has been taken. Got a lot to talk about today, and of course, we're going to have good news from Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire. Cannot wait to hear from him, but I want to hear from you at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Let me know how your weekend went. I want to hear that too. We'll mix all of those calls in too. 773-763-9278. Let us get to some of these headlines in Major League Baseball. Wow, the Twins and the A's. The A's eased out one over the Twins, 7-6, everybody. Tonight, they're going to be playing our White Sox. That's right. Tonight. Yesterday, the White Sox were triumphant over the Royals 4-3. And the Cubs, wow, they had a good time. 5-1 over Detroit. They'll be playing the Nationals tonight. U.S. mask guidelines are having unintended consequences, everybody. This is tax day. They gave us an extra month. Are you ready? Did you get an extension? Oh boy, what is happening in the Middle East, everybody? The Middle East conflict continues to loom larger by the day. A cycle of sirens, bombs, injuries, and deaths continued as yesterday marked the deadliest day of the week-long conflict in Gaza. Indeed, nearly 30 Democratic senators have called for an immediate ceasefire led by Senator John Ossoff of Georgia, everybody. What do you think about that? A group of nearly 30 Democratic senators have issued a joint statement that, as of yesterday, asking for an immediate ceasefire. Will it happen? What do you think about that? That is, of course, joining Senator Ossoff, Senator Sanders, Angus King, an independent of Maine. What is happening, everybody? As you can see, Israeli bombs destroyed the media center there. The AP, the Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and others were taken out. And they're very upset about it. What do you think is going to be the effect? Will the story about what's happening in that conflict, will that get out? because the media now have no home, everybody. But many people are saying that, wow, this is actually helping Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's had a very, very tough time forming a new government. He's not had enough votes. But because of his right-wing politics, he has always been a militarist. He's someone who is gaining some political strength from this particular conflict. What do you think about it? 773-763 WCPT 773-763-9278. Did you know that Big Pharma has a plot to derail the U.S. COVID vaccine waiver? That's right. While global health advocates are pushing to release the recipes for these vaccines so that people all over the world, particularly in the global south, will have access to the vaccines to be able to make them for themselves, Big Pharma is pushing back in many, many ways in a bid to stymie U.S. support for a proposal by India and South Africa to enact a trade-related aspects of intellectual property. That is to waive the ownership, to share ownership of the vaccine recipes with the rest of the world. The pharmaceutical industry is distributing talking points, organizing opposition, and even collecting congressional signatures in an attempt to reverse President Biden's support for worldwide access to generic COVID-19 vaccines. What do you think about that, everybody? Should we be sharing the vaccine recipes? Let me know. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Dr. Fauci is saying that it is undeniable the effects of racism have worsened COVID for U.S. minorities, everybody. And what about the moving guidance, the guideposts for CDC, and issued by the CDC, and about COVID-19? What do you think about that? Are you going to continue to mask up? Yes, no. Call me 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. In the meantime, the U.S. is warning a national terrorism alert. It was issued on Friday that warns that violent extremists may take advantage of the easing of pandemic restrictions to conduct attacks. Indeed, police all over the country are bracing for what they believe will be a violent summer. What do you think about that? And get this, I don't know how many of you are Eric Clapton fans. I'm one of his biggest fans ever. Well, he took the AstraZeneca vaccine, and he said it was one of the worst experiences of his life. He thought that for about 10 days that he would never be able to play a game. Thankfully, he's doing much better, but I'm glad that he's telling his story because it might have happened to some other people. I'm glad that he's gotten better, everybody. Working 55 hours a week, according to, did you know that according to a United Nations study, working 55 hours a week increases your risk of death? We need some more time off, everybody. But a 95-year-old has suggested that the key to longevity might be a purposeful life. Wow. Think about that. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Esquire, has got some good news for us today. What's going on, Reverend Dr. Yeary? How are you?
Good morning, Santita. I'm following the last story. Purposeful living makes life better. That's always good news. That 55-hour-a-week thing, wait till I get to the office today and tell them, you know what? I'm going to just take a little extra time off. I just feel like I want to add to my life expectancy. I'll see y'all in a couple weeks. That's my kind of story right there. That is right up my alley. Look at what I'm telling you. The masking piece, oh yeah. Look, first of all, I bought some very fashionable masks to go with my stuff. I don't care when the pandemic's over. I'm putting those masks on. They are part of my outfit now. You might as well get used to it. Here I come. Look at me crazy if you want to. Just tell me I look good and everything else is going to be just fine. We'll just go with it. How about that?
I'm with you.
Here we go. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities. Hey, everybody, all y'all, come on, get up, get moving. It's Monday morning. I know it may sound like bad news, but the week is starting. You got life to live. Put your feet on the floor. Feel the coolness of that floor coming back. It's going to let you know you're alive. Start that morning brew. Get that coffee going. Start that tea. Get that kettle hot. And let's get going because this is your day. I want to talk to you this morning with a little good news about your morning routine. I want to talk about what you do when you get up in the morning. We all have a morning routine, Santita, right? It's sometimes, you get up, you start your morning beverage. Some people read the paper. A lot of folks got to run to the washroom. Don't hate, just participate. And most of us, many of us are getting dressed for work, right? We're trying to get out the door, get the kids ready to go to school. Whatever the case may be, we all have a morning routine. I want to give you a couple of suggestions for your morning routine. If you already have them, keep doing them. If you don't, you may want to add them. First, I want you to make sure that you start fresh. Start fresh. What I mean is you got to leave yesterday's issues behind you. Leave yesterday's issues behind you. Many times we start today replaying the stuff that didn't work from yesterday. And what we've done, instead of doing what the bees call cross-pollinate, we've started to cross-contaminate. I need you to leave yesterday's drama behind. There's an adage in tennis, I've got this new thing, years ago, years ago, my first varsity letter was in tennis. I just need to tell you that was a long time ago. So I'm trying to get back into tennis. It's a lot of getting back into it. But there's a rule in tennis that the coaches tell you, and it is this: focus on the next shot. You can't get stuck on the point you didn't make. You got to focus on the next point that's coming, because you don't lose a match by losing one game, and you don't lose a game by losing just 1 point. You got to keep playing until the match is over. And so you got to leave yesterday's issues behind. You got to look at what the opportunity is today and get ready for it. And building on that is when you're getting dressed, when you look in the mirror, don't just use your reflection, use your imagination. Don't just see what you see what you don't see. Picture yourself accomplishing the very thing you're setting out to do. Imagine yourself doing the thing that represents success and let that drive you. As a matter of fact, that's what we call faith. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Don't just use your reflection. Don't just use your memory. Use your imagination. Because remember, the text tells us that God can do exceedingly and abundantly above all that we can ask or imagine. And then one last thing, you helped me this morning, Santita. You gave me the whole hook. You gave me the story. You gave me the theme. As the morning theme said, remember this: you are victorious. You're more than a conqueror. So leave yesterday's dramas behind. Go ahead and win. Win today. Have a great day, and make no apology for being great, because there's greatness in you. If you want to chat with me, you can reach me. Just check me out at douglaschurch.net. It's Douglas with one S. In the meantime, go win. You're victorious, and we'll have some more good news next week.
I love it, love it, love it. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire. He's also Vice President of Rainbow Push. We've got our convention coming up, Reverend Dr. Geary, very quickly, June 20th through the 24th. What's going to be going on there?
Well, actually, with the planning, we've actually slid the date a bit. We wanted to make sure that this year was going to be particularly focused, because there's so much going on. And we recognized that runway was a little short for all of the things that we need to focus on. So there'll be some updated information, new dates. We're going to keep the information going. But what folks can do is just keep an eye on rainbowpush.org, and everything that we're working on, you'll be able to check it out.
Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. I was a little worried about that date, but I'm so glad that you're moving it, because some of it's going to be virtual, some of it was going to be live, and that's something that we're still trying to find out as this information about the reopening of the economy. I'll have to put it that way, as that is beginning to unfold. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary. And how can they get in touch with you throughout the week, Reverend Dr. Geary, once again?
Throughout the week, you can check me out on my good news side, douglaschurch.net. That's Douglas with one S. On my social justice, civil rights side, that's rainbowpush.org. You can go there, you'll find me. And if you see me wearing a mask, just remember, I'm trying to match. Don't hate, participate.
How about that? Love it. Reverend Dr. Todd Geary. Of course, we've got our own epidemiologist, the brilliant Dr. Deborah Furr Holden, Associate Dean of Public Health from Michigan State University. We're going to be joined by someone she's brought into our presence, and we're so grateful that she has brought this young woman who she is mentoring, who is meaning so much to us, Dr. Shanina Knighton, as we talk about these vaccine passports. But, Dr. Holden, before we bring on Dr. Knighton, let me ask you this. Now we see the New York Yankees on Friday, it was 8 of them who have COVID. 9 of them now have COVID. And they're all fully vaccinated. I mean, all of these persons who have it. So, when we hear these stories, I always like to bring them up. I like to find out your thoughts so that we can know, particularly as many of us we've been given permission, if we've been fully vaccinated, to unmask. We're seeing that people are still getting these breakthrough viruses, breakthrough COVID-19 cases, and they're happening with increasing frequency. What can we do to prevent that? Or why is that happening, and what can we do about it?
Well, the same prevention strategies that held true before still hold true now. Remember, the vaccine is supposed to be an added layer of protection, not the end-all, be-all. None of these layers of protection are perfect, but they do all add something. And the vaccine does add something very critical. Think of it as a piece of Swiss cheese. If you've got a virus on one end and a human on the other end, as you start to stack up layer after layer after layer of Swiss cheese, what happens is those viral particles might be able to get through 1 or 2 layers through the holes, but those holes don't run all the way through. Each layer has a different place where the holes are. And so the goal is to, stack up as many of these things as possible to prevent people from contracting the virus in the first place. Breakthrough cases are known. There is nothing that's 100%. Even the best vaccine, 95, 96%, that means 4 or 5% of the time it's going to fail, meaning it's not going to do what it was designed to do. But what we do know is people who get COVID after being vaccinated tend to get a much milder case, are much less likely to end up in the hospital, and almost zero likelihood of death. So I still maintain it's better to be vaccinated than unvaccinated. But breakthrough cases are known. 5 or 6% of the time it's going to fail. And as we get more variants, we'll understand better how effective the vaccines are at preventing breakthrough cases with variants.
Dr. Walensky has been, the head of the CDC. Of course, you know her, but many of us, this is your space. So I always try to give as much little background information as I can as I bring these questions to you. She was, within the past 6 weeks, we've gone from impending doom, and she was tearful when she told us about what she was fearing was going to happen, to these euphoric statements, and now the unmasking of the unvaccinated. And she said, look, just yesterday, the information has evolved, and therefore my messaging to you has evolved. What do you make of that? I mean, how do you fight through that? Because people are very confused, Dr. Day.
Well, I didn't like it. I'm going to be honest. I felt like it was, you can't overnight, nothing magical happens. It's like when people turn 18. I'm like, nothing magical happens to a child when they turn 18 and they now have some increased wisdom, knowledge, insight, etc. They might gain some new rights or privileges. Same thing happens when you turn 21 or 25, but nothing biologically happens magically. I think it was a big mistake to just come out and say, because she didn't get new information over Thursday night. She didn't get new information over one evening and then woke up the next day like, voila, we just figured out that, whatever, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to mask up. No, there was a logic and there were some things underneath of that. And even more so, there were some non-public health things underneath of that if we're telling the truth. And I think she should have just been forthcoming about that. And the fact that she wasn't, I just think we've had such a hard time and a hard goal with the CDC, who's really supposed to be our agency for pandemic response, for pandemic preparedness, for, credible public health, information in times of crisis like this. And I don't agree with how they did that. I don't agree with the statement that they made. I don't like the fact that they didn't give any rationale or any knowledge or insight what was underneath of that. Just simply gave people this brand new recommendation, which honestly, a lot of people wanted to hear that. So people are also listening for what they want to hear. And if they hear what they want to hear, they run with it. And if they hear what they don't want to hear, well, a lot of people tend to reject that. So I just think the bar is much higher on agencies like the CDC to do a much better job than what they have done in the past than what they're currently doing. And notice it's under a whole new administration, whole new leadership, whole new CDC director, yet we still have all of these very confusing and mixed messages coming out of this agency.
Well, it lets you know that this is this really goes beyond who the president is, what the administration is. That's why I think it's important for us to understand the role of big pharma, the role of money in all of this. I mean, there's a lot going on because we're trying to reopen the economy, Dr. Deb. We've got to get the money flowing again, but people still don't feel comfortable. You know what? Stay right here because we're going to be talking about these vaccine passports, Dr. Deborah Holden. And what do you think about them, everybody? Do you feel that we now need vaccine passports? I mean, do you need to state whether you have been fully vaccinated or can you put that down just a little bit? Or do we or can we rely on the honor system? What do you think, everybody? Dr. Deb, I've got 30 seconds before I go to break. Should we have an honor system or passports?
Well, I don't want to take somebody else's word for something that's going to impact my health. So I don't think the honor system is the way to go here. It sounds good, but I don't think that actually is going to serve people. And unfortunately, the political climate has given way to a division and a sense of a lack of collective efficacy that I don't think will serve us.
Hey,
so no, the honor system won't work here.
Well, the thing is, what rights are you willing to give up if you have to carry a passport? Are you willing to disclose your health status? Or remember, everybody, when you give up rights, it's very hard to get it back. So call me, text me. 773-763-WCPT. GWC Entry Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text. But I want to hear your voices today. I know you're chattering with me over on Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I love it. But I want to hear your voices. We want to hear your voices. Ryan A. King. That's right. Daryl, Carol, Deborah, Samantha, Joyce, Shirley from Philadelphia, Paula, and D. Ray and everybody else. Call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT. Let's talk about these vaccine passports. Are they going to be necessary? We'll see. That's just a minute. Thank you, Devin. Dr. Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
How are you? Whew.
I'm good. I got a grant.
Oh,
I'm working hard over here already this morning.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay.
And I just found out I won the service award from one of my professional societies.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I won 2 awards in the last week. I know, it was cool stuff.
Okay.
And I just won a CDC grant. Yeah.
Well,
good stuff.
Tell us what it is. Tell us.
So this is a $4 million grant for 1 year to work on COVID vaccine equity and COVID literacy. And we're going to be doing multiple implementation sites. I think we might be doing work in Chicago.
Yay.
And when I say we, I really mean the partners. Yeah, so I may be reaching out to you to figure out how we can elevate and leverage some of your communication channels just to boost literacy. I tell people, I'm not telling people, if somebody asks me, I know them personally, I will tell them get the vaccine. But for others, I'm like, what questions do you have? What concerns do you have? Let's make sure your decision making is rooted in fact, not fiction.
I think that's the way to go, Dr. Dale, because number one, when you put the information out there that way, you are assuming that people have common sense and have intelligence, right? Because people have been treated dismissively, and that's not the way to go.
Saying Dr. Knight and Attorney CK through.
You have to ask. You have to ask people. How are you feeling? What do you think about this? Because I told you, in my headlines, I saw this. I am a big Eric Clapton fan. I love Eric Clapton, and so I have a lot of his music. Just love him, love him, love him. And he took the AstraZeneca shot. Hello, Dr. Knighton. Hello, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. And he had a horrible reaction to it. And he's talked about it. He's been very open. He's not an anti-vaxxer. He said, but let me tell you something. He said, they're not telling us everything. Because for 10 days, now mind you, this is one of the greatest rock guitarists in history. He said, I thought I was never going to be able to play again. When I read that, it almost brought tears to my eyes because I cannot imagine Eric Clapton never picking up a guitar again. But he physically would not have been able to do it. And so can you imagine for 10 days what that was doing to his head? Because also as a musician, it's really a solitary pursuit, everybody. You can sit and play and me sing and play by myself, and I'm perfectly fine. Because really the work is in the practicing. And you do that alone. He couldn't do any of that. So just even having him talk about that experience, see, he'll get deplatformed, right? Instead of talking to him about his experience and helping him to work through it. You understand what I'm saying? So
60 seconds.
And so I think that your approach will really help. We'll just make space for people to ask questions, and to be open to receiving the information. So thank you for that. Thank you. Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Morning, Santita. How are you?
Doing great. Dr. Knighton. Dr. Knighton, are you there?
Says she's there.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning.
Okay. Well, everybody does the most brilliant stuff on mute. I got it. You didn't know that when Dr. Deborah drafted you that you'd be on
10 seconds.
all the time. She knows what she's doing. But see, I get her every day too.
I know.
So.
And listen, y'all have no idea. When y'all talk about Dr.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Love it. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about these vaccine passports with the opening up of these, with the opportunity to go maskless if you have been vaccinated. Well, will you do that? I mean, will you do that? How will you do that? And how should other people do it? I mean, should we go on the honor system? Can we go on the honor system? Do we need vaccine passports? Are they necessary at all? Of course, joining Dr. Deborah Verholten, our own personal epidemiologist, we're so honored to have her every day. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton, who we're just so proud of this young woman with the work that she is doing. She is a nurse. She has a PhD, and she has really been talking to us about infections and how we can really avoid being infected. She's an infection preventionist. How do you prevent these infections? As we're looking at the New York Yankees, now there are 9 of them who are on staff who have been fully vaccinated, who had these breakthrough COVID-19 viruses. And of course, with the possibility of a vaccination passport, that is really a legal issue. That's why we have our legal eagle, the people's attorney, the president of the National Bar Association, host of our own radio show on WAOK every Tuesday at 11. I'm sure she's going to be getting a lot of questions about this. 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time on WAOK every Tuesday. Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Let me start with you, Dr. Shanina Knighton, because, when we were talking, as we've been talking over the past few days, Dr. Deborah Verholten and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, Dr. Knighton brought forth something that, quite frankly, I didn't know. At least I wasn't sure. I wasn't certain about tracking who's gotten these vaccines. Dr. Knighton, you said that there's a record of every vaccine that's been taken and who's taken it. Please explain.
So good morning. I would say that is definitely in the United States. I'm not sure what's happening in other countries. However, what I do know for sure is for like maybe about the past couple of months, I've actually been doing the vaccine pods. So taking my students out to the pods to actually administer the vaccines to the community. And I know for sure that when we're doing the process, we actually register. So individuals are registered. They pre-register to take the vaccine. When they show up, they actually show up with a sheet of paper. And I'm sure may have been some of you all's experience as well when going out to get vaccinated. And so there is a sheet of paper and there is that card. But what many people don't realize is that registration sheet, as well as the lot number from off of the vaccine vials, then gets entered into a database that is then transferred to the CDC. So wherever you may live at, they have the information of who took the vaccine. And this is done for multiple reasons. I continue to tell people that, yes, this is essentially a phase 3 clinical trial. So they have to be able to track participants in order to be able to know if there are any side effects or if there is something that's happening. They are able to know who has what and when. They're able to know the exact lot number. So when we're looking at the situation, let's say where it was, the J&J vaccine that, potentially they said was causing women clots, you figure out of thousands and thousands of vaccines that were being done, how are they able to track 5? And then say, oh, this particular lot needs to be stopped. And when I'm saying lot, there's a lot number that's on the vial of the vaccine to let you know what vial the medicine came from. And so it's able to be kept track of. So that way, if let's say a bad mixture or something did happen, then they would be able to track that. Now, mind you, these issues are minor, but yes, it is still possible, just like a car accident, just like other stuff, things can still happen. And so, no, they are well aware of this information that's being tracked, and the CDC has this information for everyone.
And this is a phase 3 clinical trial. Now, this is something they're not saying. What does that mean?
Well, so for example, and Dr. Deb continues to bring this up, when we talk about emergency use authorization. So when we talk about a phase 3 clinical trial, this is honestly even when we think about blood pressure meds that somebody takes. It might be a new insulin that might come on the market. We might see it on TV and say, talk to your doctor about this particular medicine. But if it's not something that's been around for an extended period of time, then there is no way for them to achieve long-term data. Well, long-term data happens when they can get saturation of a certain population taken. And when I'm saying a certain population, meaning if it's for individuals that have high blood pressure, if they can reach an adequate sample of individuals that have high blood pressure that takes that medication and there are no side effects or no signs and symptoms, adverse effects such as death, then at that point, that is when it can get FDA approved. But the clinical trial in itself means that it can then move past emergency use authorization, not even really emergency use authorization, just being authorized and not necessarily approved. And that's where we are right now.
Okay, it's important for us to know that. Yeah, I think it's important for us to know that, because when that is put out there, people jump on you and say, you shouldn't say that. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, because when people said, this is a trial, there has been pushback on that, but in effect, that's what this is. So, I mean, that's important for us to know. What about these? Well, okay. Since at least there is some database in the United States of who has taken, who has received the shots, is a vaccine passport necessary, in your opinion, Dr. Knighton, before I go to the rest of the panel?
So one thing I'll say is this is HIPAA is still in full effect. And I know for many people, entities, they think it's gone out the window. But protecting patients' information and privacy is still essential, and that still has to be done with proper authorization. So I'm not sure if it's necessary. I just know, even based off of right now, the CDC having that information, if airlines decided they wanted to do an airline passport, the question comes is really, how do you get that information? And this is, again, going to be to our colleague that is going to be able to answer this, but it's like, how do you get that information in a legal manner where it's not going to cause the CDC trouble or employers or these other entities, when I know for sure, like working in healthcare settings, we can't release patient information, or it comes with a hefty fine. If there's a breach, it comes with a hefty fine. In my research, and Dr. Deb knows this too, we have to keep information as safe as possible. So I think the question comes is, what is allowable versus what's not, in order for them to be able to produce these passports, and then if it's going to be voluntary.
Dr. Deb, your thoughts on these vaccine passports? Honor system or vaccine passports?
Well, I don't know about which one we should have. The honor system is nothing. That's not going to work. I don't trust my fellow man right now. I'm confronted all the time, even when we had the statewide mask mandate in Michigan, by people who refused to wear a mask, or who would accost me or one of my children because we were wearing a mask. So I think people are going to just use this as an opportunity to do what they've wanted to do all along. So the honor system, to me, that's nothing. That's a wink and a smile. So whether or not we should have a passport, I don't know, but there's precedent for this. I've traveled to Africa a bunch. I have to have my proof of malaria vaccination with me, and I have to have it on me at all points in time. That is a requirement. I had to have that before I could leave, and so that there's precedent for this. I think about enrolling my kids in school. I had to provide proof and documentation of not just their vaccinations in Baltimore City, of their lead test, a blood lead test. And they couldn't get enrolled in school without it.
But
there's a good point here.
I think that is a good point, but I think the challenge, though, is that when you go to many of these African countries, they're not free, open, and democratic societies, as ours is alleged to be. Many of them are militarized. I can hear something in the background, everybody. Many of them are militarized. And so they don't have the same, it's just not politically, the implications are very, very different, I think. There is precedent, but these societies, these countries.
Well, and the requirement is on this end too. I could not get on the plane without that. So the U.S. must have reciprocity, because this wasn't something that got enforced when I got there. It wasn't, they checked it before I got off the plane. No, on the U.S. side, it was checked before I got on the plane, while I was still on my own soil. I'm just saying, this is not something that's all together brand new and coming out of nowhere. We have a lot of precedent around mandatory vaccines and how those things get documented. So I just got my Tdap shot, my tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. Pertussis is whooping cough. Whooping cough can be fatal for infants. I have a new grandbaby on the way. It's good for 10 years. Clearly, I haven't had a pertussis vaccine in 10 years. I had no reason to get it. So I'm getting my pertussis vaccine. I got it. And they gave me a new vaccine card. And I said, oh man, this is kind of good, because, I now need to start tracking my adult vaccinations. You're supposed to get tetanus every 10 years. You're supposed to get flu annually. There are actually adult vaccinations. So I actually felt good that me getting my Tdap vaccine, I got my little vaccination card, the same way my kids had them. And it's really cool, because when we moved from Baltimore to Flint, I was able to take their whole vaccine record and their vaccine. It's a little passport that they have that shows every vaccine that they had. So there's no question, that my son get HPV. And I remember we had a problem at his pediatrician's office, and the power kept going out in the building, and they didn't have the refrigerators where they had vaccines stored on a backup system. So they had to keep throwing vaccine out. So he just stopped offering the HPV vaccine. He said it's too expensive of a vaccine to throw out, et cetera. And so I thought, man, I'm so glad I have this card, because when we actually moved and I went to another provider, I could show this is the vaccine that my son had, the date that he had it, because it's a 2-dose vaccine. And I'm not worried about my son catching HPV, but that was the gift. I said, I'm getting you the HPV vaccine because that's going to be the gift you'll give your wife or your partner. You won't give her HPV. You know, so these notions of tracking our vaccinations and being able to document them, I actually think there's some value for us as individuals, but this is not something that's altogether brand new. This particular, you know, all this hubbub around COVID, that's kind of a whole different issue. People say things like, I don't want the vaccine because I don't know what the vaccine is going to do to me. And you know, they have all these doubts. And I'm thinking, have you seen what COVID does to people? There's just this hyper-vigilance around COVID that people don't have for anything else.
But you know what, Deborah?
Nobody did any of this when they got all their other vaccines. No one has raised any of these concerns.
But politically, we're in a different time. We're in a time in which people do not trust the establishment institutions. So I think it's about more than COVID. It's about Bill Gates. It's about all big pharma. I think there's just so much. That's why it's important for us to disaggregate all of this stuff, because it's not, I don't know if it's about the vaccine as much as it is about these players, the actors, and the times in which we're living. Yes.
I was just going to say, though, so, and this is the thing, so in Dr. Deb's defense, and I continue to talk about this, but our meat is vaccinated, and in some cases, there's viruses that sprayed on stuff. There's been issues, let's say, with drugs in particular that might have caused issues. There are issues with certain chemicals, like, I mean, I'm just saying, like in our food. And so where it's, you know, this awareness, or I would say this enlightenment of people saying this particular vaccine, it's like what's happening in terms of us not advocating or fighting against the other things that are typically out there that are harming us too.
But that's why you're here.
And so I do.
Because people are not even thinking with that kind of depth about our meat, about the pesticides on our vegetables. We're not even thinking about, there's a lot that COVID is really forcing us to think about. Because this is not, I'm not pushing back against Dr. Deborah or anything. I'm just trying to put all this stuff out here that I think that's floating about, that's got us. Well, you know what? Let me run over here to Attorney C.K. Hoffler, because now, I mean, this is medical. It's a public health issue, but it's also a legal issue. It's a constitutional issue. There's so much, Attorney Hoffler, that, you know, when you start putting these things out there, and Dr. Deb does make the point, you know, when you get these vaccines, you really essentially get a passport. But it's another time now. Something else is going on. Attorney Hoffler. And then there's a sense that this could increase inequities. I was reading something about that. You know, just talk to me. Where are we?
Well, there are a lot of things going on. I mean, I first traveled when I was 5 overseas, and every year for maybe 50 years, I got some sort of, and I guess I'm revealing my age if I'm saying over 50 years, but some sort of vaccination for my travel, because at one point I was going to Africa, vaccination or medicine, I was going to Africa, you know, once a month at a minimum. And so I always had, either it was the Larium or something in my system, because if you go every month, you know, you're 2 weeks before, then 2 weeks after, you might as well just take it every day. So I think that, and I've always had this vaccination card in my passport that handwritten when you take your whatever vaccinations for going to countries. But that's a U.S. requirement more than anything. I think the U.S. government interest is in you not bringing back a disease from these countries. So I just want to be clear, while there might be requirements from those countries saying you need to do this, the enforcement is on the U.S. side, because the U.S. interest is that they don't want you bringing back these diseases to infect the U.S. I just want to give that as a perspective. So there is a precedent, there is a history, if, like Dr. Deborah Holden said, when you go to school and the like. But COVID is different, respectfully. It really is different, because this is the first time we've seen, at least in my life, where I've seen people kind of beside me dropping dead for something that's a disease that's invisible, where I really feel as a non-medical person, even though I do medical negligence litigation, I am a non-medical person. I'm a lay person. It's the first time that I feel that consistently and mainstream media from the CDC, and I know people are doing the best they can, I feel like I'm getting conflicting messages, a little misleading, and it's a reflection of the fact that we are in clinical trials. I think when I say clinical trials, it may not be from a medical standpoint, but in fact, that's what it is. And the reason for that is it does take time to know how it takes years to find out the patterns of vaccines, the patterns of this and that and that and this. And this was done right quick and in a hurry because we were in a pandemic. And I'm not being critical of getting vaccines, of the creation of these vaccines. I'm just saying there are a lot of unanswered questions. So literally every day when I turn on whatever news station I listen to, there's a new iteration of what we should or shouldn't do. So at this point, as I said before, I'm doing based on the information that I have and the guidance that I'm receiving from people like the two doctors on this call and, the president of the National Medical Association. I'm looking at what's best for my family because I don't feel that I can rely on what I'm hearing on the television. It's hard for me to accept, just me as an individual, forget the legal training, just to mask today, really mask, and then tomorrow, well, you don't have to wear a mask under these circumstances and you're good. And then everybody's taking their mask off. That makes no sense to me. So I have to have my common sense kick in. From a legal standpoint, there are a bunch of issues in the workplace. So did an employer have the right to require employees to take the vaccine? In some instances, there was some precedent that said yes, but there were some exceptions that were carved out. An employee could say why, for medical reasons or for religious reasons. Remember, that was the narrative in the beginning. There's going to be litigation that will test that because it's not an ironclad rule. This is an evolving area of the law. We have workplaces, because of political issues, that fired people who wanted to wear masks in the workplace because they felt that is not what they wanted. That was not the look of the workplace. So when people, I'm talking about 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, when people would come in with masks on and shields, their employer would say, you cannot wear that in this workplace. So you either go home or you're fired, and we don't have an obligation to hold your job. So there's litigation surrounding that. Is that permissible? And during a pandemic, another issue. What about if people come to work and they don't want to wear a mask because they just don't want to wear a mask? Can an employer enforce that? Well, the short answer is yes. An employer can, but there could be ramifications. So all of this from a legal standpoint is an evolving area of the law. I see more claims every single day related to COVID because people want to know, what are my rights? What can I do? If I'm a teacher, do I have to sit in a classroom in an old building that's already toxic, by the way, because of other environmental issues? Do I have to sit in that classroom with students who are 16 to 18 who have not been vaccinated? And I have been vaccinated, but I'm not sure if that vaccination is going to protect me fully against anything, since there are people who have been vaccinated who have contracted COVID. All of these are baseline questions for common folk like me, common meaning non-medically trained people, because we're getting conflicting information. And that's a result of the fact that there has not been enough time. We haven't had the traditional clinical trials that would ordinarily be afforded for vaccinations to mature. That's a layperson speaking. And so that's why I feel that people have to take matters in their own hands, look at the information that they got. If it's in their family's decision to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. I do know a few people who are holdouts with the vaccination because they felt that they don't want to be guinea pigs. These are people in the medical community, not people who are like me. I know at least 2 doctors who have their own practices and they're not subjected to, any hospital or anything like that. And they have said that they do not want to get the vaccination. They're doing therapeutics. They're doing a lot of other things because they don't want to be guinea pigs. And they are not persuaded that these vaccinations are the best for them. Well, that's just their individual decision.
But you know what? I think I'm going to give everyone like 30 seconds a minute, literally, to close. I think it would have been we would be in a better place, a more trusting place, if it had been disclosed, Dr. Knighton, 1 minute for you, that these are clinical trials. I don't think anyone would have objected to that, particularly last year when we were, this is an airborne virus, it's killing people. Look, we've got to get something out right now that we think is going to work, but we need your buy-in. Where do we go from here, Dr. Knighton? 1 minute.
So I first and foremost want to say that I think awareness is a big deal. And I just want to give the analogy that if you go out and you buy a red car of a certain brand and literally you buy that car, your eye all of a sudden starts to pay attention to more and more cars on the road that's of that particular brand and of that particular color. Clinical trials have been going on for some time now, not just with this vaccine, but with other medicines that are being offered right now in our doctor's office. And I'm not sure if it is a situation of where it's saying like, hey, this is a clinical trial. Your doctor may say, hey, this medicine has shown 95% effectiveness and may be helpful in lowering your blood pressure or helpful in your blood sugar. And guess what? You take the medicine. You don't say, oh, I didn't know that it was in a phase 3 clinical trial. So I think the problem is now is that people are paying more and more attention to ingredients. They're paying more and more attention to the FDA authorization and approval process, which I think is absolutely fabulous. But I also want to say as well that, yes, just because there is an awareness that is a clinical trial, that brings up the fact that we should be more vigilant of trying to understand and demanding that our taxpayer dollars are putting forth the science in a way so that the general public can understand. But this information is not new, and I understand it does seem like things may be underhanded because we get information today that's different from what we received last week. But we also have to remember that there is a balance that while, yes, there is concern that information is changing, science changes on a daily basis, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of researchers that are tackling this problem right now. And when their research results come together and aggregated results, that very well may be driving a decision that differs from yesterday. And so our goal is just like anything, even like our ancestors and people that came before us, they had to become very creative when it came down to saying we don't want to be slaves no more. Okay? They couldn't just keep with the same rhythm. They had to outsmart the master. So I'm saying that simply to say that it is the same thing with us trying to outsmart this virus. And in order for us to be able to do that, as well as return to life, we have to be strategic and have to realize that things are going to continue to change. And yes, a lot of this stuff don't make sense because a lot of it is not supported by science as it should be. But there are a lot of things that are supported by science. And we have to realize that this is the time for us to critically think in order for us to be able to get ahead. Because I say it all the time, it's not going to be the last pandemic, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And we have to trust the messengers. That's why we congratulate Dr. Deborah Verholden, who just got a huge grant. And it's going to enable her to get the message out, That's one of the things that we love about having you wonderful women who are so qualified to do all the great work that you do. Thank you, Dr. Deborah Verholden. Thank you, Dr. Shanita Knight. And thank you, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. What about the African Basketball League? The NBA is now debuting an African Basketball League. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-WCPT. What will it look like? What will ownership look like? Did you know that President Obama is involved? Is he an owner? What's up? Let's talk about it. Back in just a minute. Thank you, lovely ladies.
You're welcome.
Well,
that was great.
Oh, well, look, you all were great. Thank you so much for everything. I got to find some of these right-wing Black people, because I just found a wonderful article in the Washington Post today that's Black, brown, and extremist. Love it.
Right. Okay. And the thing is, I mean, that I didn't get a chance to really say, I think I'm not an anti-vaccine person. I am a pro-information, protect yourself and your body person. And, my family, we made the determination, all of us, we want to get vaccinated. That's what's best for our family. And even for my 16-year-old, I made that decision early on when people were like, oh, no, I can't vaccinate. I was like, that's your call. But for me, for my child, my children, and the medical conditions that we have surrounding in our household, this is what we need to do. So, but I am frustrated by the ever change, because I do deal sometimes in black and white, but I also deal in gray areas. And I know medicine is not an exact science. So, I always say stay tuned, but I'm feeling a little uneasy about this don't need to wear a mask outside business.
I think it's the trust. And I think that if you get some trusted messengers, the things that we've been hearing from Dr. Verholden and Dr. Knighton have helped. Because it's really how you deliver this message. That's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. It's a big deal. And I think that's part of the big problem. That's been the problem.
We started off behind the 8 ball where our former president was misleading us, lying to us, misguiding us, doing all that. That created that really created the distrust. This is nothing more than the flu. It'll pass. Don't worry. No, all of that is in the back of our mind.
But Dr. Burks told him that. She said that this was going to be over by April. And you had Dr. Fauci who wasn't wearing a mask. He could have worn a mask.
And then went to saying, hey, we need to wear 3 masks. Yeah. So, and that's the thing that I'm saying, I think regardless of political leader, I'm be honest, I could look at both of them and probably do like a pros and cons. And I bet you they both would be similar on the list in terms of their failures regarding this. And also, too, I hate to say it, I have nothing against Dr. Fauci.
All right, sending Tony Covington, Attorney Patillo, and Dr. Woods through.
That specializes in HIV. He doesn't necessarily study or specialize in prevention. And so with him not specializing in prevention, the problem then comes is how can you tell somebody how to mitigate an infection and you've never had to practice in this area? It is a practical approach that needs to happen. And there's a lot of people that do it, but it's not necessarily that even though he is the expert in infectious diseases, that he's an expert in knowing how to get rid of them. He knows the pathology of them. So I think also, too, the problem comes is that do we have the right experts in place to be able to give information to the public? And I've always had an issue with that.
Well, that's how I feel about it. And, look, just treat people like we are, like we make good sense. Just talk to me. That's all I need you to do. And you have to do that now because people don't trust the establishment, and that started before Trump. People broke the entire communication system at the House of Representatives when the bankers asked for a bailout in 2008. And then they reworked the system so you can't get but so many letters through, so many calls through. People are angry. I was watching Kamau Bell's show late last night, and you saw angry white and black people, white folks and black folks who were angry with the system. That's the time that we're living in. And so all of this, all that we're talking about has to be filtered through that prism. But I'm going to let you all go because I've got Dr. Amira Woods, Tony Covington, and Robert Patillo up. We're talking about this African Basketball League. Ooh, this is exciting. I can't wait. I love you all. Deb, congratulations, Dr. Deborah Verholzen. Yay.
And I just got to tell you, too, Santita, I love Dr. Deb. And Dr. Deb is a true advocate, okay, when we talk about, just sister love. Because when I tell you she has been pulling me along with her as a mentor, and I greatly appreciate her, I just needed you to understand that. So she's brought me to you, but it's also just so instrumental in helping me with other things, too. So thank you.
No, thank you, because that's why you all are here, because I think you all are great examples for everybody. And what you're doing is you're giving people information. You're giving them comfort. And I thank you for that. I thank you for being trustworthy. Worthy of our trust. Thank you for that. Thank you. And Deborah, we can't say enough about her. And CK Hoffler and all of y'all. So I love you. And I know that wasn't grammatically what it's supposed to be, but whatever.
Have a good day, Santita. All right, bye-bye.
Like I said, whatever. I hope my mother's not listening right now. Thank you very much. So she could say, y'all. What? Do we have Tony Covington? Oh, wait a minute. The hands of man. That's right, honey. He had all the women going crazy when we had him on. Deborah, are you still there, Dr. Deb? I mean, everybody.
I am, but I got to go. But y'all have a great show. This is great.
60.
Honey, I saw more women. We were on a Zoom call. I saw these screens going dark. And everybody going to get makeup. I said, y'all, he's got a family. Let him go.
You are too much. You are too much.
Oh, come on now. I knew what was happening. I said, but I come ready. So I don't have to get ready. I got the war paint on. Yes. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I don't know what's up. I don't know what's in the water, Dr. Woods and Robert Patillo. There's something in the water down at UVA. These are the most gorgeous black people I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, and wait a minute, and I went to Howard. Ooh.
10 seconds, everyone.
These are the best looking people in the world. Oh, yes,
I love it. I love it.
I love it. I love it. I was like, wow, this is.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
Oh, I love it. All right, everybody, the Santita Jackson Show, Monday, May 17th, 2021. You are victorious. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio. Voice of Progressive Minnesota. I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278 as we talk about the African Basketball League. The NBA is opening up an African Basketball League. What will that look like? But they're opening it in Rwanda. People are having a lot of pushback about that. They're like, this is a great thing, but human rights violations, all of that. But, that can happen throughout the continent and really all over the world, including here. So let's talk about that. Is this something to celebrate? And what will President Obama's, what is his involvement in it? It was reported 2 years ago that he is part of the formation of this league. Is he going to be an owner? The commissioner? What? Let's talk about all of that. I mean, and how does that, and what did that mean as he really interfered in the protest, the protest that was growing with NBA players last year? It turns out he was really working with the NBA all along. There's a lot going on here, but we're going to talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show, and I want to get your thoughts. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, and I want you to meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the WCPT 820 Facebook page, and the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube. That's right. Please like and subscribe there. And oh my gosh, I'm on Twitter at Santita J, the Santita J Show. Oh, so just please meet me over there. Everybody, Chicago is going to have a high of 63 degrees, but it will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 79 degrees. It will be sunny. We're going to be playing the Twins tonight, everybody, here in Chicago. The White Sox will be facing off with the Twins. But yesterday, the Twins, they just barely lost to the A's, 7-6 yesterday. The White Sox, well, they were trying to put over the Royals 4-3. The Cubs 5-1 over Detroit. Today, they will be playing the Nationals, everybody. Nearly 30 Democrats have called for an immediate ceasefire as the death toll from the Israeli assault on Gaza tops 190. This joint statement has been issued by freshman Senator John Ossoff out of Georgia, joined by Bernie Sanders and Angus King of Maine. The demand came as the Biden administration continued to single-handedly obstruct the release of a United Nations Security Council statement calling for a halt to the violence as the Palestinian death toll yesterday near 200 was 42 people killed in Israeli airstrikes in Gaza early on Sunday, everybody. And everyone is wondering how's the news going to get out, because the Israeli bombs destroyed the Gaza Media Center, which housed Associated Press, Al Jazeera, and many others. How will we get the news? It seems like this, though, has been a political lifeline to Benjamin Netanyahu. That's right, who's been having a very, very hard time forming a new government. He's not been able to pull together the votes. But this war might help him to form a new government. What do you think about that? 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Well, Big Pharma's at it again. They have a plot to derail the U.S. COVID vaccine waiver. That is, President Biden has supported the relaxing of intellectual protections that would allow us to share these vaccine recipes with the global south, with India, with South Africa, all around the world, Asia, so that they can make these generic vaccines themselves. Well, Big Pharma is now passing out talking points, organizing opposition, and even collecting congressional signatures in an attempt to reverse President Biden's decision. Everybody, let's talk about the basketball league, the African Basketball League. Did you know about that? You know that it kind of flown under the radar on old Santita J. And I just want to know what that's going to look like. Will this be different? Will this be different from the National Basketball League? I mean, and the National Basketball Association. In fact, I mean, now we could actually have world championships. I mean, for real. I mean, because the world champions have really been United States teams, but now, basketball is huge in Japan. It's growing in China. I mean, Kobe Bryant's death was a global event because he, like Michael Jordan, they're global icons. They have been ambassadors for basketball all over the world, all over the world. And so, what does it mean when you see all of this genius that has come out of the continent, uh, out of Africa? Olajuwon, Matumbo, I mean, so many, they just keep on coming. Well, now they will be able to remain in Africa and have their own league. And it's 1.2 billion people in Africa, everybody. There's 331 million in the United States. So they almost have 4 times as many people. That's a huge market, a huge market. And so this is a big, 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 big deal. So what what about being opening in, and not just opening, but being based, at least for now, in Rwanda with the human rights concerns? We've got to talk about this. We are being led by Dr. Amira Woods, brilliant senior advisor. She is at the Shine campaign, but I met her at the Institute for, Foreign Policy and Focus, one of the premier African experts in the world, an absolute brilliant scholar, activist, and we're so honored to have her on this show today. We've got Tony Covington, a former pro football player, and of course, he is a Virginia Cavalier. We love it. We love it. But he's an author. He's a father. I urge you to get his book, I Am Underdog, A Journey of Adversity and Blessings. A Journey of Adversity and Blessings. We're going to have to get him on this show to talk about that book because I Am Underdog, celebrating that. But it's a journey of adversity and blessings. And of course, attorney Robert Patillo, a brilliant civil rights lawyer, the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, and the host of his own show every Sunday on WAOK, that iconic radio station in Atlanta, Georgia, from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. So welcome to the show, everybody. Dr. Amira Woods, talk to me about this African Basketball League. And it turns out President Barack Obama is involved. I don't know. They have not really disclosed what his role is, what his role not is going to be, but what it is. But, we know that he and the First Lady and the First Lady's brother, who is a basketball coach, that they're huge basketball fans. In fact, the First Lady's brother, Craig, I know them well. He played at Princeton, played basketball, and has become a very, very highly regarded college basketball coach. So they're in with this league. So talk to me, the Africa League of the National Basketball Association. What do you make of it, Dr. Woods?
Well, first, my dear Santita, thank you so much for all that you do. I'm just listening to your show and feeling like, the way you empower not just your listeners, but, up for the world, right? So we just thank you. We lift you up, and we just wish you continued strength and blessings. I am just so honored to be part of the show today, and thank you for making space, and just you bring everything right in front of the radar. So thank you for that. On this question, yes, we saw this launch this week of the NBA Africa League, and in many respects, it is exciting, right? Because it is the NBA recognizing that this, we've got to just put it front and center. This is
the century of people of African descent, right? This is our time, right? And I think they're recognizing how vital Africans, both on the continent and in the diaspora, are for the success of any venture, particularly a venture, in sports that touches lives all over the planet, right? So I think, it is something to celebrate that this league is being formed, and that many people, including as you say, some behind the scenes, that are playing a role in its formation. So the league itself is great, right? And it's 12 countries coming together, 12 of the 55 saying we want to be part of the leadership as this takes off, right? And I think the issue really is like, okay, the NBA is recognizing how important the continent is, how important African people around the planet are, and wanting to tap into that. That's a good thing, right? But they choose to really do this launch, this inaugural set of games in Kigali, Rwanda, at this moment in time. Let's remember, Santita, and remind your amazing listeners this morning, Rwanda it's got a lot going for it. It's a country that's been at the vanguard, yes, of women's leadership. If you think about women leaders in political office, you should think Rwanda, because it is like 60% of the legislature are women, right? So on the surface, you see a lot of beautiful things and great things. But if you look under the hood, lots of problems. So under the hood in Rwanda right now is an issue of political repression. And so the highest profile case, this amazing, what we call and think of as the hero. If anybody saw that movie, Hotel Rwanda, it chronicles the life of Paul Rusesabagina, who was a hotel manager at the time of a genocide in Rwanda, a genocide where much of the world looked the other way. Rwandans were saying, we've got to save our own. He was one of the heroes, saving people in the midst of the genocide, right? And what happened back in August last year, in the midst of COVID, he got an invitation from a faith group to go to Burundi, not even Rwanda, to go to Burundi. So he left his home in the United States, in Texas, to go to Burundi. The Rwandan government literally kidnapped him at the airport in Dubai, kidnapped him, took him to Rwanda, and has put him on a sham trial, which he in the end said, you know what, this is a sham. I'm not going to be a part of this. And, and he's not allowed to have his own lawyers, not allowed to mount a proper defense. So he's critiquing the process. So in the midst of kidnapping, detaining, and keeping like a hero from getting access to medication, even when he's having medical crisis in the midst of COVID, all of that, this Rwandan government is doing now. And the NPA says, okay, well, yeah, we believe Black Lives Matter, but we'll give the Rwandan government a pass on this one. And it isn't only the case of Paul Rusesabagina. There are lawyers, there are journalists, there are opposition leaders, basically anyone who is seen as a critic of the Kagame regime is being disappeared or killed, right? And you have musicians, powerful, young, dynamic musicians like you, Santita, touching the world through our hearts. You are now, a year ago, Kazita was killed for speaking out through song, through music, about the human rights violations and the increasing repression in Rwanda. He now has been killed, and others are now being disappeared. So what you have is a climate of repression. And in the midst of this repression, you had two things happening. The Commonwealth, this is like the United Kingdom and all the countries that were part of the United Kingdom, they were supposed to have their heads of state meeting in Rwanda in June. And because of public pressure, the Commonwealth said, oh, no, let's not go to Rwanda right now. Let's wait on this one, right? But the NBA said, well, we know there are human rights violations, but we're going to go ahead anyway. It absolutely makes no sense. You cannot say you're going to stand up for social justice here in the United States, recognizing how important that is, and yet turn away from an opportunity to uphold social justice in other parts of the world. It is inconsistent and poorly timed. And, again, there are 12 countries. They could have gone to Senegal, Santita. They could have gone to Mauritius. There are so many, Madagascar. There's so many countries
Nigeria,
that are part of the league. Exactly, right? So let's exactly. So, let's call them on it and say, look, NBA, you go forward in Africa, but go forward with the right set of values.
But why do you think they chose Rwanda? Is it because of the
money
development there? Oh, okay.
So what they're saying on the surface is that Rwanda has a facility, and it's true. Rwanda has beautiful facilities,
it's clean,
nice new stadium, but
it's
clean. Yeah, but
right?
Exactly right. Senegal has a beautiful new stadium. There are a number of places on the continent with beautiful stadiums, right? But we cannot only look at the stadiums. We've got to look at the context in which these games are being played, especially an inaugural season, right? Let's look at what values you're conveying as you go forward with ignoring human rights violations at this moment. So what we're saying is that, look, NBA, we've got to, do better. You cannot recognize the importance of international engagement without understanding your power and your voice. And if the Commonwealth could say, let's hold off on Rwanda, certainly the NBA could have chosen another beautiful stadium to launch this league.
Why did the Commonwealth say no? Was it public pressure? I mean, what's going on? What are they trying to do on the
Public pressure. Public pressure behind the scenes, right? And recognizing that they can't ignore it. You cannot ignore, this gross violation of human rights that's happening before our very eyes, right? So, can you imagine if a high-profile, leader like Paul Rusesabagina, he was the subject of a film played beautifully by Don Cheadle, right? If a high-profile individual like that could be kidnapped and detained and, kept in prison and without access to lawyers, without access to medicines when he has health conditions, what if you just imagine what is happening to others who are now being, because they are critics, because they're speaking out on human rights issues, they're being silenced, disappeared, kidnapped, imprisoned, and killed. This is the problem. And it's in this context that the Commonwealth said we cannot condone these human rights violations. They have postponed having a meeting, having the heads of state meeting in Kigali in June. So certainly the NBA cannot be deaf-toned, cannot ignore these circumstances.
Everybody, what do you think? What do you think about this Africa League? Do you think it's a good idea? Who will be the owners? What do you think about opening in a place that many people are saying, wait a minute, we've got human rights violations. We can't ignore that. What do you think? Should they open there? Should they go to Nigeria? Should they go to Angola? Should they go to Morocco? Should they? What should they do? What about Paul Rusesabagina? I mean, should he be released? Let's talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Attorney Robert Patillo, I know you've got some thoughts. Robert? Well, let me go to you, Tony.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What are your thoughts? It's okay. It's okay. No mute anybody. No mutes. Go on, Robert.
Well, I think it's crucial. I think NBA, these global corporations understanding that the image they've created of Africa, carefully crafted over the last several centuries, is incorrect. And they're seeing that there's vast natural and human resources there that they've now decided to, one could say develop, or others could say exploit. But if you look at some of the greatest players in NBA history, from Dikembe Mutombo to Hakeem Olajuwon to Joel Embiid and Giannis Antetokounmpo right now, there's tremendous potential there, growth potential, and it's particularly with the players that have the opportunity to spread generational and sometimes multi-generational wealth throughout the continent. It's one thing for a kid from America to sign a $200 million contract. It's a completely other thing for somebody from an African village to sign a $200 million contract. And the ability to spread that wealth throughout those areas, those communities, has a tremendous potential for good. But as with all things, it depends on what the right people do with the right thing at the right time, and how exactly that will be developed. But as far as creating a mechanism to do so, I think this is an amazing opportunity. We have to ensure that we have the right education, the right mentorship, and the right resources available so that these players can prosper and help their own communities.
Tony Covington, this is your world. The top level college space, the top level pro space. There's so much money in sport, and we've been confining our involvement to American athletes, and they're great athletes and huge market opportunities all over the world. First of all, what do you make of this Africa League? Is it a long time coming? And what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it has been a long time coming. The NBA has kind of led the charge on basketball without borders. Various games that they'll have kind of exhibitions over in Africa, and when you have the number, I think it's 80 current NBA players that are either from Africa or have some ties to the continent. I think it's been a long time coming, but as I think about the big picture and everything holistically, I think it's an opportunity to grow the game, one, and with true folks being able to stay home and play. It won't be the same as the NBA level, but it has to grow. The NBA didn't start out awesome. If you think back to the beginnings of the game and the ABA, it didn't start out that way. And so I think you're going to have time for it to develop. When you look at the big, it's pretty much been a big guy game coming from Africa, because the skills for guards, that's what I mean about the development of the game. It's not a whole lot of guards that are coming from Africa and playing the NBA. It's mostly the big guys, like Dikembe. But what this allows the game to do in growing it, now they'll have an opportunity to develop their skills, the smaller players, the guards, the ones that are handling the ball, because that's one of the things that you notice with the new league and some of the games this weekend is that the guard play and the dribbling and the handling and the step back and the hesitation moves. And, you didn't see all of those things because they haven't had an opportunity to develop it. And so as you're talking about baby steps to grow the game, all of those things are going to be important. And so as you're growing the game, you're creating jobs. You're creating an economic boom for the continent. And the hope, I think, is that you can bring a country that has otherwise been very divided, try to bring them together to work together for the greater good.
You know what? We're talking, everybody, about this African League of the National Basketball Association. What do you think about it? Dr. Amira Woods is helping us to understand that, the way you start off is the way you end up. You've got 12 countries in the beginning who are forming this league. It's an exciting opportunity. It's 1.2 billion people. But should you start in Rwanda? Should you start in a country where there are troubling questions about human rights? Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, and let's talk with Tony Covington, the author of I Am Underdog. Beautiful, beautiful book. It's a journey of adversity and blessings. Of course, Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director of Rainbow Push, and the brilliant Dr. Amira Woods, Foreign Policy and Focus Institute for Policy Studies, the Shine Campaign, bringing women from the global South up right where we all belong. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Thank you so much, Dr. Woods.
You're brilliant. Thank you for this opportunity. Oh, wonderful.
You got to come on. Yeah. No, because
I'm ready.
Look, I'm ready. You know what? I was at the Crans Montana Summit in Brussels for African women.
Oh,
just before.
Wow.
was in December of 2019, just before everything shut down.
Yeah, before COVID. Yeah.
And just the energy that women have, and I'm wondering, like, are they going to do a WNBA? Talk about groundbreaking. I mean, there's an opportunity. I think there's an opportunity here, but it's got to be done correctly. But I wonder.
Absolutely.
I'm wondering about President Obama's. I know his influence has got to be tremendous, but what is he saying about this? Do you know? I mean, we're going to come back up on air.
I don't know, but I know you might know better than I do.
I don't. I haven't talked to
really
him in
important
years.
question.
So no, I don't know. That's why I'm just putting it out there because with this happening, and when I think about when in the midst of these George Floyd protests, Tony Covington and attorney Patillo, the NBA players did something unprecedented. We looked up. You saw the cameras looking down on the floor during the playoffs, and they refused to play. And my fist went in the air like, yes.
I do.
Yes.
Gave me goosebumps.
Oh, yeah. And then he talked him out of it. And then remember, he talked him down from it. And that was very, very disappointing. It was very disappointing. And I thought it was, and I said, this is a setback for the labor movement, just generally speaking, because because we now see no basketball players, no NBA. They're the ones with the power.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yes.
Robert, can I get an amen? Tony Covington, can I get an amen? Hello. I mean, you all can disagree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it becomes a thing where both sides were right in it. There were the way that the NBA players didn't know exactly how they wanted to approach it, and that's why they reached out to President Obama, and he just guided them to, sitting out may not be the best maneuver because you guys have the stage, so you can do more with the visibility and platforms that you have.
60 seconds, everyone.
Than not playing. And I think that's why it was done that way.
I disagreed with him completely, because number one, he's not a liberator. He's a legislator. I love him to pieces, but that's not what he does. That's not his lane. So even don't bring him in that. You need to talk to people who actually do this, who fight for the change, who enabled you to have it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And let him applaud you.
Can you imagine?
But no.
Yeah. Can you imagine somebody talking John Carlos down from that stage? That was the comparable thing to me. Like, who would do that? Like, that is the moment in history, right? So you cannot stop that from happening. Let it happen. See, and recognize the power that brings to change the world.
I let you stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
That is not
10 seconds.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You
Right.
do this. Now, the people who are out in the streets protesting and opening the doors for us, the tree shakers, the general.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Determined, unstoppable, achieving the impossible. We're standing tall with our heads held high. We are victorious.
All right. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk about this African League of the NBA. It's an exciting opportunity. 1.2 billion people are on the continent, and they're growing every day. It's the fastest growing population on Earth, quite frankly. And it's a tremendous money-making opportunity. My goodness. And some of the greatest basketball players in the modern era have come from, they're not only of African descent, of course, for driving the league, but I mean, they've come straight from the continent of Africa. So what will it mean? I mean, and how the way you start off is the way you end up, everybody. The way you start off is the way you end up. I'm Santita Jackson. This is WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. And we're talking about just how what the African League of the NBA can mean, and how it should begin. I mean, should it begin as we're in this woke moment, as we are talking about human rights, civil liberties? Should we now ask out of the countries that we're deciding that we're going to do business with, that you in order for us to do business here, there's a way that you need to behave. Or until you behave this way, we're not going to we're not going to, at least we're not going to put our masthead here. We're not going to do this. We're talking with Dr. Amira Woods, brilliant scholar. I mean, brilliant scholar. I mean, she is from Foreign Policy and Focus from the Institute for Policy Studies and the SHINE campaign. They are really helping to put women from the global south, from the so-called developing nations, the nations that give the West all of their wealth, putting women in our proper place, everybody. I mean, she is absolutely brilliant, from Harvard and from Columbia University, Dr. Amira Woods. We have got the brilliant author, and he is a father and a former NFL player, and he was with the Virginia Cavaliers, brilliant football player and motivational speaker, Tony Covington. You've got to get his book, I Am Underdog, A Journey of Adversity and Blessings. He has got a story in his life, and he's an overcomer, and we're so grateful for him today. Attorney Robert Patillo, who hosts his own show on WAOK in Atlanta every Sunday from 1 to 4. You don't want to miss it. It is brilliant. I don't know if he missed his calling as a comedian, a brilliant comedian. Like in the tradition of Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory, these brilliant guys, Bill Cosby and Richard Pryor, the people who really kind of tell it all. But he's a civil rights lawyer, and he's a Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push. So much that he has to offer, and we've got a tremendous panel here. Want to continue to get your calls? Pam, call us back. 773-763-WCPT. 773-763-9278. We were talking during the break, Dr. Woods and Attorney Patillo and Tony Covington, about President Obama's involvement in this leak. I'm excited to see that. I found that story a couple of years ago because he's such a fan, and I think that he could have a tremendous impact if it's used in the right way, right? I'm wondering, though, what he is thinking about opening this in Rwanda. I mean, now this is someone who, when he went to the continent of Africa, he, upbraided Kenya on LGBTQ plus rights, right? I mean, he has no problem going into spaces and being critical. What about this, Amira? Dr. Woods?
Well, you, as always, asked just the right question. Peter Jackson, you just nailed it, right? Because I believe that everybody should be speaking out on this if they care about sports, if they care about human rights, if they care about politics. But, certainly someone with the record of the Obamas in terms of their engagement with Africa, even their foundation, wanting to engage young leaders. So what values are they conveying in being silent on this issue? That says a lot, right? It speaks volumes. So I think that's the right question to ask. I join others in saying, that we're coming up. It's now, just about a week away, the anniversary of that horrific murder of George Floyd, where basketball players and everybody around the world said, no, we cannot. We've got to move the knee that is on our collective necks. We cannot condone murder before our very eyes and say nothing and do nothing. So the world spoke out, but the power of those NBA players leading, voices speaking out. I applaud LeBron James. I feel like he has used his power and leverage in such strategic ways, and so for many of us, we were alarmed, quite frankly, to think behind the scenes when they reached out to President Obama that there was any hesitance in saying push further, which is what many of us were saying, right? Use your platform.
He told them to stop. He said,
Yeah.
No. I mean, this look, that's no shade. That's his position. I appreciate that. I just disagree with it. I said, we now see Tony Covington, because you have been on that field of battle as an athlete, as a top level athlete. You're the ones with the power, Tony. That's what we saw.
Yeah,
we saw no NBA players. There's no game tonight. You just have some guys who own some teams. We don't want to see them, Tony.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And what athletes are realizing now is that they do have way more control than they ever thought they did. It's very interesting how when you see the way that they protest the injustices, it is it's the owners saying, "Hey, well, we have to cater to the fans. You have to listen to the product that you have out on the court, because they are the ones that dictate things. You may write the check, but the owners are so worried about the fans. The athletes love the fans too, but they're starting to really realize that there are bigger things at play." And so by standing out, utilizing their platforms, and when you're a LeBron James or you're a Steph Curry, those are the guys that can do it, and they empower the younger guys to be able to do it. So you're setting a very good precedence in my estimation. And let's not sleep on the power of the women in the WNBA and how they really were out in front, way ahead of it, protesting, going, talking about the owner down in Atlanta, wearing the Warnock shirts in support. And I mean, man, to me, they showed the guys how to do it. You had individuals.
Amen. That's right.
You had individuals that, like a LeBron, that were, getting out there saying the right things, getting their message out. But from a league standpoint, the WNBA got it right.
Well, I mean, now, before I get back to you, Attorney Patillo, what would it mean? What would it mean for women's life options on the continent if we establish a WNBA over there, Dr. Woods?
It's powerful, right? Because you're recognizing the centrality, the equality of women in everything, including sports. So I think it would be powerful, and and especially at this moment when the NBA, talk about phenomenal voices leading change. They are at the forefront, recognizing their power to change the condition of their sport, and their and bringing equity of pay, equity of everything to the table. So I think having those conversations would be so timely all around the world, including in Africa.
Attorney Patillo, what do you say? I mean, what about opening in Rwanda? I mean, what about opening in a place that people around the world are saying, this is problematic? What role should a President Obama be playing? I mean, because we've got issues of ownership, right? I mean, are we going to have black owners? Or will they be minority owners, majority owners? I mean, is this a new opportunity for black entrepreneurs on the continent? What do you think, what do you think, Attorney Patillo?
Well, I think the African players will have the opportunity to use their social justice movement similarly to as American players are, which is you can highlight issues of economic strife. You can highlight political corruption. You'll be able to bring more attention and more eyeballs to what's going on in the western border of Rwanda and other nations to ensure getting the type of international support for it. Sunshine has often been the best antiseptic on earth, and when you bring more attention to a region, you bring more attention to those issues, which will force the international governments to actually act. Part of the reason we've seen such human rights violations in the last decade or so is the fact that the eyeballs of the international community have been off of Africa and onto other parts of the world, and we can bring that attention back, be it through the World Cup, be it through the Olympics, be it through a basketball league. What you end up with is the international community now can demand change, and that's the best way to affect people's lives. So I think it's all going to be how the players use this new power, how they use this new attention, and how it grows into elevating, and they're able to use it the way our players have to elevate their own communities.
Mama D, what's on your mind today?
Oh, well, hallelujah, greetings. Thanks for taking my call. Yes. Reverend Dr. Prophet King said we should get the language straight. And Carter G. Woodson said, if a race has no history or worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated. What happened to indigenous Black American Africans made us different, and we need to claim it based on the definition of genocide. Section 2, Article B defines genocide as...
Mama D? What do you think about the African
Yes.
Basketball League? What do you think about that?
Well, this is what I think that based on the definition, American Africans should be included because the definition says causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. Today, May 17th, the United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation laws were unconstitutional because they only existed to keep the status of the Negro down and cause serious harm to Black children too young to express themselves with words or in writing, use dolls. So they were admitting genocide by definition.
So your point about
why don't we use appropriate language that the United Nations used in the definition of genocide and apply the correct language?
When we talk about genocide, I absolutely want to talk about that. But we're talking about it. I need you to get on topic here. What about
exactly? What I said is,
well, then, Mama D, hold on. Then pull it all together. You've got 30 seconds.
I'm saying because of the definition of genocide, when the courts ruled that it was doubtful the children would overcome it, that was serious harm. And serious mental or bodily harm is genocide by definition. So American Africans should be included in that league with the Africans on the continent.
But I don't think that's. But wait a minute. I don't think that's a question. Do you think that this is now? Well, I mean, does Mama D make a point? I mean, I don't think that they were excluding African American talent. Robert, Tony, Dr. Woods. That's not what's on the table here. We're talking about.
I don't think so. I think actually the continent is becoming even more inclusive, right? Because the African Union has said that Africa is 6 regions. It's the 5 regions on the continent plus the diaspora. So the understanding of who we are as a people is everybody, of African descent. This is coming from the African Union's, like core foundational documents, right? So it's embracing all of us wherever we're born on the continent. And now we've got so many, right? There may be, first generation African, second generation, their parents may have come, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, or more recently, but they identify, so there's so many, right? But also we've got to understand that those who were brought over on the slave ships, right, against their will, stripped away from their families, they are a part of the African family. So, Mama D, I just want us to understand. I think your point around genocide, genocide to any member of our African family, any member of our human family is wrong and should be called out, right? Including the genocide of slavery in this country, right? And the genocide of police brutality in this country. We've got to call that out. And I agree with you, Mama D, on that. But I think what we're saying is that, this league getting started in Rwanda, we should not accept and condone that human rights violations, whether it's on the streets of Chicago or a kidnapping from an airport in Dubai, right? Or people who are being disappeared and killed because of a song they're singing about freedom, speaking out against a president who's been in office as a dictator for 20 years. Speaking out against the human rights violations shouldn't mean that a gospel singer gets killed. That's what we're saying, right? And that the NBA, if they want to launch the league, they have so many other options. They can launch the league anywhere else, right? If they choose to continue to go forward as they have seemed to in Rwanda, they should be speaking out against these human rights violations. They should say, as they say here, it is not okay to kill, to violate and to strip away the dignity of a George Floyd. It is also not okay to strip away the dignity of a Paul Rusesabagina. They should be using their platform to uphold social justice in the United States, on the African continent, and wherever else they choose to play.
But see, we're having this woke moment, and they saw the NBA players last year who was responding to a human rights violation through the killing of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. They said, we have had enough. But they were talked down on that. So maybe they are actually being consistent, Dr. Woods, and Attorney Patillo and Tony Covington, maybe they're not as offended by this as we are. I'm just saying because they don't have to open there, and they certainly could make another kind of statement. They don't. I'm just help me. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here because they don't have to be there. They don't. Senegal, as you and I both know, beautiful facilities. There are other places, and like Nigeria, Lagos can be chaotic. It's one of the biggest, most populous, most densely populated cities on earth. But oh boy, would these folks have a good time there? They would shop until they dropped and all of that. Come on. People, you will get to the continent, everybody, and I pray that you'll have the opportunity to get over there. You will, but when you travel around the world, you see that Sao Paulo is a city of almost 20 million people down in Brazil. Okay? And there, we look at our little skyline here in Chicago. Think about it, everybody. If you're in Chicago, their skyline begins at O'Hare and keeps on into the city. Okay? Yeah. So there's some places in the world, and that's where they're not just going to Africa, Dr. Woods and Attorney Patillo and Tony Covington, just because, this is 1.2 billion people. This is a huge pool of talent. This is a lot of money, but this is also, as you're saying, Dr. Woods, an opportunity to make a stand on human rights. And I'm just wondering why they're not doing that. I don't get it.
I don't understand it either. I think it's a slippery slope with the NBA. You have to choose wisely. You've had plenty of time to prepare for this moment because you've been talking about it for a number of years. So then I'm in agreement with you all. Why choose to have your base of operation in Rwanda with all of its political history? That's not very good. When you have other areas that you could have your base of operations, we don't know what those conversations were behind the scenes. So we're guessing at it, but we can read about the history, and so why do that? The move to Africa I think is great. I think it's great for the opportunity that it provides. You mentioned the population of 1.1 billion. And from a revenue standpoint, the African consumer will spend $2 trillion by 2025. So from a revenue standpoint, okay, that makes sense. All these things are good, but you really have to be careful. Every move that the NBA makes will be scrutinized. They won't get everything right. And I think they will be learning and growing as this moves on. And so us trying to figure it out, there are going to be some head scratching decisions that we will say, what in the world? Why did they do that? I think they're trying to figure it out as well. But the Rwanda move, still don't quite understand that one.
Attorney Robert Patillo, what do you make of this? I mean, we're in this woke moment globally. What should happen?
Well, I think what's going to have to happen is we here are going to have to focus the spotlight on what's going on human rights violation-wise throughout the continent. That the corporations are going to do what's in the best interest of their checkbooks. They are not human rights organizations. They're not NGOs. They're not in the business of making the world better. They're in the business of making money. But for those who are interested in the rights of mankind around the globe, we have to shine a spotlight on that and force these corporations, including the NBA, to make an investment into the human capital, not just the ones that can throw a ball into a hole across the room, but for everyone involved, because it looks the best for them when they are building up those countries, providing waters, villages, malaria nets, etc., and working on calming some of the political strife that's happening. What we've seen globally is that the money these corporations marshal have been able to make brand new diplomatic victories will not have existed before because everyone likes a little piece of the pie. So these corporations have an amazing opportunity to be able to break some of these political strife and actually develop these nations in ways that the Western powers have not done so. But it all depends on us using that power in the right way.
Dr. Amira Woods, I'm going to let you have the last word here these last couple of minutes. Where do we go from here? I think that one of the upsides for me is that we're now going to have Kigali on our tongue. This is helping us to mature our conversation, particularly Black people we're part of the African diaspora, the Black diaspora, if you will. Now we're going to be looking at Lagos differently. We're going to be looking at all of these. These are places that are no longer going to be away from us. They are now, our NBA players are going to hop on the plane and go over there. I mean, this is helping us to mature our conversation, but I think economically it can help us, but I think politically, socially, it should be helping us as well, because we have got to be in a place where human rights matter. They've got to matter. It's not enough to make money. You got to make sense, and more than that, you need to make some morally righteous decisions in this money, on all of it. Dr. Woods, 2 minutes, your final word.
Absolutely. I feel like very well said. I think we're at this moment where we can't, we're in the midst of this pandemic that has disproportionately impacted our communities. We can't ignore inequality and what it's meant to the world and to our family, right, as Black people around the world. So I think we've got to recognize with everything that we do, we've got to push for the dignity, the respect of people to be honored, right? So I think out of just as we're saying, like, Black Lives Matter is as basic and as core as that all around the world. So if you're talking about, basketball, then yeah, Black lives, whether they're the WNBA or, women or men, they matter. Treat them with dignity and respect, honor them, pay them, have equal facilities, have equal pay, all of the rest. There should be equity built in, not just how you can extract and make money, but certainly when it comes to engaging the world, we've got to acknowledge we can't just say Black Lives Matter. It's got to mean something in everything we do. So choosing where we spend our dollars, how we engage, where we engage. So I would applaud the NBA for starting an African League, recognizing how powerful and central the African continent is to the world. It's phenomenal, right? I think it's going to open up opportunities where we share, food, culture, music, film, art, all of that. It's going to be rich and beautiful because it's going to continue as it has, for generations on both sides of the Atlantic benefiting. But I think right now the NBA has to look at itself and say, what can we do to uphold values of human rights? And say, first and foremost, free Paul Rusesabagina. That should be like one central call the NBA can make now. There are many other people who have been in prison and are being disappeared and being killed. Let's start with like the Hotel Rwanda hero. Free him, now, and let that be something the NBA puts out there, right? And human rights violations, free Paul Rusesabagina. That should be like an easy call for anyone wanting to uphold Black lives and assert that Black lives matter. That should be a basic, right now, call from the NBA.
As we go back to Africa, everybody, don't take anymore. Give back. Because indeed, the Western countries have gotten $152 trillion of their wealth. The foundation of their wealth comes from the global South, from Africa, from Asia. It's a new world, everybody. You can't continue to plunder. You've got to plow and sow some seeds. I'm Santita Jackson. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson, Lord willing. God bless you. Have a great day. I'm Santita Jackson. Love you. Dr. Woods, Tony Covington.
Oh, what an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate all that you do.
Oh, no, honey. I didn't get a chance to give you your kudos. because I just think that you are just
Oh,
an
please.
absolute gem, really. And I thank you for
Right
that.
back at you. Right back at you. Sending you so much love. Thank you
Oh my
so much
goodness.
for all that you do.
Thank you for everything.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you for
You the
everything.
bomb.com. You the bomb.com.
Oh, youbomb.com.
You know, I love it.
Listen, I mean, no, really. This man's story, Tony Covington's story, will make you cry and make you shout hallelujah. Because you talk about someone who has endured.
Yes.
Oh no.
Wow. The
Someone who's
underdog. I've written that down. That's gonna be on my list. I need to read that. That sounds amazing.
Oh yeah. This book can save some lives. And it does. Oh yeah. Because you talk about someone who has the hits just kept on coming in his life. And instead of being buried, he climbed on top and rose higher and higher and higher. And I have so much admiration and respect for you, Tony. And I want to thank you for all
Thank
that
you.
you are and do.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to bring you on to
Well,
talk about.
thank you for always giving me. Hey, that works. Thank you for always thinking of me, and having me involved with the things that the topics that you discuss, because they're so important and we need to have those conversations. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of some of those discussions, because they matter.
Thank you. Well, that's what this platform is for. Quite frankly, this is for people to know you and for you to be able to talk to the people. You've had both of you, and I don't know if Attorney Patillo's still here, but you've had these big lives and you've made these wonderful contributions. And I've been blessed to be in a lot of different spaces, and oftentimes in predominantly white spaces, they don't even know that people like you, Tony, people like you, Dr. Woods, people like Attorney Patillo exist. And it's not always mean spirited. Some people, they just don't know. We live very segregated lives in the United States. We live very segregated lives all over the world. Classes, economic classes don't commingle. You kind of do that in college, kind of, sort of, if you're in a college that doesn't have eating clubs, right? But it is people, it's tragedy that brings us together and that puts us in different spaces and places. And we're going to have to grow up,
Yeah.
And that's why, I think that the African League, I don't care how it started off. I know how God can shape things, right? God can do things that we cannot even imagine. And so now our children's children, the African capitals and the large African cities, they will now know in ways that we did not know.
Right.
And they're gonna want to go to Nigeria. They're gonna want to go to Rwanda. Yeah. They're gonna want to go to Morocco and Angola. They're gonna want to go to South Africa, and they might go there and say, you know what, I think I'm gonna stay here for a while, or I want to work over here and work. This is something that our ancestors have been pushing for. My father pushed for dual citizenship with Africans in Liberia in 1971, 72.
Wow.
These are not new ideas.
Dr. King was and now it's being discussed in the Liberian legislature.
Absolutely.
Now it's happening. I think it's going to happen, but it's already happened in Ghana and in Senegal. I think there are a number of places that are now doing the dual citizenship and the open passports. So I think, once the African Union is like, look, you're part of the diaspora, you're Region 6, you can have an African Union passport. That also changes things dramatically, right? Because then it makes the dual citizenship is like brought to a continental level. That's powerful. I didn't realize he had started that in 1971.
Oh, absolutely.
That is amazing.
With the Talberts. Because when you get around the world, you see all of the people in the United States, except Black people, kept a foothold in Italy, in England, in Scotland, just all over the world. But we don't even know where we come from. And you know what? Because we're so tribalistic on the continent, thank God for that. So now we're just Region 6 and the whole continent can embrace us. And that will help us.
Exactly.
That will help the continent.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
And I think there's more people who are doing like their DNA, finding out where they, like okay, where does their DNA land them, and and are finding ways to connect with different parts of the continent. So I think all of that is going to have an effect, right? Because people are seeing, okay, well, I'm in this region, and I have this relationship here, and I think that also changes things, right? I mean, I literally had somebody contact me from Chicago, saying she did some DNA ancestry thing and traced herself to my uncle. And I didn't, and so contacted our family, and she's like, oh, I didn't know I had, contact. I had a link to Togo and Liberia. I was like, what? This is amazing. And her DNA shows like she and my uncle are like connected. Like, this is incredible. So as the technology improves, it also changes in terms of our sense of ourselves and our lineage and all of that. It's amazing.
And it's going to change how America
Possibilities
relates to
are
us.
endless.
Well, it's going to change how America relates to us. Because when you see, it's just like any relationship. If I may break it down this way, when a man thinks you have no options, you're treated that way too. Yeah, it's true. No, when you have no options, well, you have no place to go but me. But when you got options, I mean, that's the power of having power, whether it's beauty or whatever it is. When you have economic power, when you have social power, when you say, now, you know what? Now, actually, no, I have someplace else I can go. Or what my home continent is strong. You can understand why people fight so hard for a homeland. Because it strengthens you. It does.
Exactly.
And that is what we need. That is why we have to push on this African League. It needs to be right and just. And like I said, I love President Obama personally. This has nothing to do with it. But when it comes to a liberation fight, that's not who I'm talking to. That's not what he does. He's a beneficiary of that. He benefited from that, but he didn't fight for any of it. That's not what he does. So I leave him over here. You stay in your lane. And when I send you to the presidency, then when this happens the next time, then you do what I tell you to do. I'm not following you. That's the mistake we've been making. We are following the president. No, the president's supposed to follow you. Ask Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a centrist. He is a right-wing Democrat. He is not a progressive. But because America has moved in the progressive direction, he's got to follow me. That's the way it's supposed to work.
He knows who he knows. He saw Georgia. It's like, say no more.
He knows. And
the demographics are changing. He put him into office. He knows he has to respond. It's black and brown people.
This ain't love.
Got to respond to that. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, get over it. Stop needing to be liked and loved and all that. That ain't what this is. This is quid pro quo. You do for me, I do for you. I do for you, you do for me. That's all this is. So when it comes to this, no, there's some things that these guys, because if they're not on the court, they don't have a league. You can't say that enough.
That's it exactly. Yeah.
So
that's it exactly.
We are going to continue to monitor this and revisit this. And Tony, I want you in this conversation because Tony has played at the highest levels of football at college and the pro level.
That's wonderful.
And so you understand the money and the impact of sport. ESPN is bigger than all of the networks combined, Emira.
That's amazing.
I mean, no, because everybody loves sports. I mean, they want about 15 minutes of news. They can hear sports talk for hours. My father can. He only talks in sports metaphor. Oh my gosh. Okay. He's been all over the world, done many things. It comes down to the baseball diamond or the football field. Okay.
That's it reaches so many people. That's smart. That's really smart.
That's what it is. That's the way it is.
So, understand. Yeah.
Let's get over it.
What is the thing? I just learned this one with hockey. Skating is to the puck. Skating to the puck.
Yeah,
like thinking ahead.
That's right.
I think like chess moves, and they're like skating to the puck. So I'm like, I think some of these. Your dad is right. Like some of these. It's making those analogies just reaches people in a different way.
That's right. It's like music. There are things that unify people, and this unifies. But this has an opportunity to absolutely lift our children, in particular, where they will see their beauty. They will see themselves in a whole different way. When you see your homeland strong, it strengthens you. And so we have to push.
Absolutely.
We have to push. You can do good and you can do good and do well. Everybody, you can make money and do the right thing. So we have to push on that. We have to push on that.
Absolutely.
It's not enough to have an African League and have some more black millionaires and billionaires. I'm over that. I'm done. That's not exciting to me. If you're not going to do it the right way, then I don't want to hear it. How about that?
Exactly. That's it. Right. That's it.
It's not, because it's late for that. God has given us everything that we thought we wanted. And you know what? It's not been enough because it was not grounded in that which is right and just. If you're not going to do it God's way, it's not going to work. Not going to work. Not going to work. My mama keeps telling me that. And she's telling the truth. She ain't told no lies.
Yeah, that's it.
So I love you all. Exactly. And I'm going to let you go.
We love you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Strong.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Get
Tony,
the book.
nice to meet you also. Really nice to meet you. I'm going to go.
Nice meeting you as well.
Look for your book.
Thank you.
Yeah, keep up the good work.
I am underdog.
Well.
I am underdog, everybody.
I
wrote
it down. Yeah.
It's going to bless you. It's going to bless you. I love you. I love you, Amira. I
love you. I love you so.
Take care. Bye. Love you too.
Have a wonderful day. Okay. Bye now.